Thank you so much, the Stratboard, for the opportunity for me to come and share some thoughts around L&D, HR, and how we can make our sessions more engaging, more interesting. Uh, yeah, I think the secret sauce is how do you keep your participants totally engaged and give them a sense of enjoyment when you are part of the session. One of the great challenges for any L&D professional, any trainer on the floor, is many of the participants in many organizations might have come there because they've been asked to go there. They're not there necessarily because they really want to be there to learn something. And I don't blame them for that because they may have concerns around their work. They may have a lot of things going on in their mind that boss might be calling them in between breaks or whatever. So, how do you ensure that they are there for a great experience? That's what a trainer needs to do on the floor. That's what an L&D professional needs to do on the floor, whether it's a virtual session or whether it's an in-person session. Or even if it's e-learning, it's extremely important that how do you create that level of engagement. Now, the experience of a great session or the word sauce that you use, how do you bring that out? That it has through one, how you facilitate a workshop. Obviously, you do activities, people learn by doing, so you apply the adult learning principles there. Aspects of your job or a role as a trainer. But I think the most important thing is for participants to see that the trainer is simply loving what he or she is doing. If I am not enjoying myself completely, if I'm not totally in the zone, as they call it, when I'm conducting a workshop, that energy will not rub off on my participants. I think it's all about bringing alive that energy. So I myself need to be completely engaged with what I'm doing, which is where at HSSC we gave birth to this concept of the enter trainer, where you are not just a trainer, you are also bringing in an element of entertainment into the way you are delivering the learning. Uh, I would like to share one experience here when I was doing a program for one of the clients. And so I used the entertainer style. So it's fun and it's humor and there's a lot of personal connections that I try to make within the workshop with people. I want to connect with them as I talk to them. Uh, but in one of the programs, people said that we were looking at more a more serious workshop. We didn't want so much of laughter and we didn't want so much of fun happening. And it was very interesting. It was the same organization where I had done two batches, and the first batch totally loved the style. And the second batch said, yeah, the workshop was good, the style was good, but we wanted it to be a little bit more serious. So I suppose the learning that I derived out of that was your audience profiles. Sometimes you need to adapt to them. Sometimes you may have to temper the entertainer style. That is one element here, which was a great learning for me also. Second is ultimately entertainer is a style. It's how you bring about your workshop. How do you bring about your learning? So it's a style that you employ into delivering the content. If your content is not good, however great your style, it's going to fall flat. So I always use the example of the South superstars, Rajnikant and Kamal Hassan. And we say that Rajnikant is more about style and Kamal Hassan is more about substance. So as a trainer, you need to, as an entertainer also, you need to have a combination of style and substance. It cannot be just style. It cannot be just substance. Now, the reason why Rajnikant and Kamal Hassan are so successful is because Rajni has a lot of substance, but he's known for his style. Whereas Kamal Hassan is known for his substance, it does not mean he does not have style. He also has his own style. So it's always a combination of style and substance. So if entertainer has to be a long-lasting philosophy, it has to have long-lasting impact in the industry, then it's extremely important that you combine style and substance. So you basically your content has to be really good, high quality content. So when we do the Enter Trainer certification program, which is our version of the Train the Trainer, it's a lot about new concepts. It's a lot about very evolved understanding about who we are and what kind of people we are training. There are behavioral aspects to them. So there's a lot of substance there. And then we infuse the style into it. So, so just to conclude, if I were to say this, that if you only have style and you have no substance, it will have very short-term impact. However, if you have substance and you infuse it with style, it could definitely have a long-term impact. Similarly, only substance, no style will not get you very far. So it's how you do the balancing act. That's what the entertainer philosophy is all about. So I think it kind of connects us back to the previous question. A large part of my success or my journey, acceptance towards my style, it comes from the style itself. I think whenever I'm talking to clients, uh, their biggest concern is hope the training won't be boring. And I find that I find it very surprising very often. Are we trying to say that trainers are boring? That they're actually just downloading and they're not, creating that level of engagement within the classroom? I don't know. So maybe that's been an experience for a lot of participants or for a lot of organizations. So this is one very compelling requirement people have, that your your content, of course, has to be good, but we want them to go back feeling very motivated. We want them to go back feeling very energized. We don't want them to come back and tell us that, it was very boring and I could not sit through for 2 days. It was really tough. So that's one very compelling need that I have experienced in my career as a trainer so far. Second is, can training provide me with performance enhancement? Will productivity of my participants go up? So I tell them jokingly that if you're going to do a one-off intervention, the only person whose productivity is going to go up is mine, not your participants. Unless you are ready to engage me over a project which runs for about 3 months, 6 months, 4 months, 1 year, whatever way you want to look at it, and there are follow-up sessions, and there is continuous engagement with them, and where there is a sense of execution orientation. Whatever they learned in the foundation course, are they beginning to apply them? You need to handhold them to apply the concepts also. You just can't leave it to them. You see, in India, especially, what I've experienced is that we are not great self-learners. We need handholding. We need people to, kind of urge us, push us. We are happy if somebody pushes us to do something. And I'm sure globally also, I mean, if you just leave it to participants to do everything by themselves, I think not more than 10% people have that kind of self-ownership in life. They are not going to go back and implement. So this is the second element, productivity linked training. And I completely enjoy and revel in working on projects where there is an opportunity to actually create a behavioral shift in people. Now, an interesting perspective here is, I always tell people that I cannot impact productivity, but through my workshops, and through the interventions that we do, I can impact the person who needs to impact the productivity. And I think that's where our role is. How do you impact that person? By using various learning methodologies and by establishing a great connect with this person. Whether you are applying a facilitation methodology, you are applying a coaching methodology, you are applying a mentoring methodology, or you're simply having a conversation. I think we have stopped having conversations. We have created this whole ecosystem around there has to be coaching, there has to be mentoring. I think there has to be training. I think simplest way to learn is by having a conversation. That's what our parents, that's how they taught us, through dinner table conversations. That's how we grew up in our life. We need to have those conversations. The third thing which is now coming up is, how do you handle the millennials? This is a huge segment because they are the largest working population in the world, and of course in our country also, of course. And they have a different outlook to life. And I enjoy listening to their outlook. They are people who don't take the trainer on face value. They are ready to question. They don't take their bosses on face value. They question. They don't take their parents on face value. They question. And they have many of them have a very liberal and a liberated outlook towards life. And these are the people who are your participants. So how do you connect with the millennial mindset, with the millennial culture? How do you connect with the millennial language? They speak a different language. So I would say it was fun. They would say it is LOL, lots of laughter. And we write long text messages. They'll send a simple emoji. So that will tell you whether they're happy, they're sad, they're angry, whatever it is. It's their way of communicating. It's extremely important today for L&D professionals to adapt to the new way of communication without getting into the saying that this is the technical, this is how it has traditionally been done. So these are some of the things which I see evolving right now. And as people like me who gain more experience and grow older in the system, the challenge is to stay youthful in our mind and heart, because it's a world totally driven by the youthful energy. I'm not talking about driven by only the youth. It's the youthful energy. You may be 50, you may be 60, but if you have the youthful energy, then we will all be very relevant in this world. That's where the real challenge is. How do you keep up to the energy levels that these millennials are coming up with? They have tremendous energy. That's amazing. The kind of energy this country provides wherever we go, wherever I interact with people, it's incredible, and it's all because of the demographic and the kind of population that we have, and these I don't want to call them kids, but because that makes me sound very old. but I think these young professionals are redefining the way everything is happening in our country, including learning and development. One big message for the HR community. Wow. I think post-pandemic, I wish and I hope that HR professionals start valuing themselves much more than they have ever done. It begins with us. And then, of course, we want the other stakeholders and the CEO and the people running the organization, the owners of the company, to respect HR professionals for what they are. So we need to start valuing ourselves much more. And we need to start, and we talk a lot about business HR. What is business HR? I just made a statement in the last, I think during the last question was, you cannot impact performance. You can impact the person who brings the performance, who brings about the performance. So HR, when you talk about business HR, It's nothing but impacting people in the right way so that they become better human beings and they also perform better. So it's always both. There is a behavioral side to developing people and there is a performance side to developing people. So I think both are critical, both are important. And HR has a huge role in evolving people. You've got to evolve people. So in our entertainer certification, we talk about a concept which is called as evolution versus success. You may be successful, but you may not be evolved. You may be evolved, but not so successful. So it's both. How do you get the balance right? It's all about the balance. So how can this impact happen? How can HR impact people in a way that they can impact the overall performance of the organization or the productivity of the organization in the right way, in the ethical way? I think there are two C's which I want to talk about here. One is culture. HR is the flag bearer of culture. When I meet people across organizations, the first thing I look for is the culture within that organization. And I think HR has to be the greatest ambassadors, the flag bearers, and the drivers of the right culture within the organization. Are people being heard of? Are people being heard? Do people have the opportunity to have transparent communications? Can they give feedback without feeling threatened? Is there meritocracy within the system? These are all things which HR has to drive. And sometimes you need to take a stand. You need to tell whoever matters within the organization that I am only going to do what is right and not what is convenient. Let's not play along where it is not correct to play along. I think that requires a certain level of courage. Which is why I said we need to wear the consultant's hat, because when you become an employee, then you are insecure. Then you're protecting your zone. But when you are working with a consultant's hat, then you're looking at things more objectively, more correctly. So one is culture. Second is competence. In my travels, in my various workshops that I do, the glaring gaps in competency, I mean, it's glaring. The gaps are in competency are glaring and they stand out. And interestingly, my observation is a lot of organizations lay a lot of emphasis on developing communication skills, for example, or leadership qualities. But if you ask me one area which is neglected, is language development, English language development in organizations. Because end of the day, all literature is in English, all communication happens in English. And we are living in a connected world, so we are all global citizens. So we need to have one common language which connects all of us, and that is English. And I find a lot of times the communication challenges come from the language challenge, not because we are poor communicators, because I think many of us do very well in our local language. When we communicate in our local language, in our vernacular language, or in our mother tongue, we are very good. But what about English? So what this leads to is a major problem in deciphering how people write, what they have written. The mails are so confusing because the grammar is not in place. They are probably thinking in their local language and writing in the English language. So there is a big mismatch there also. So you have to develop the overall competency of people, and it takes time. I mean, I know that in my so many years of growing up as a professional myself, it takes time. Today, I feel I'm at a certain level. There's so much more to learn. There's so much more to grow. And how much time it takes for people to inculcate those competencies. Yes, we can accelerate the process by putting in systems which are more competency driven. So when The focus is on culture and developing the right competencies. The productivity and the performance will take care of themselves. So essentially, HR needs to create a people development system. And I know many of them do a great job around it. And it's not easy. You have to put up with a lot of challenges. There are a lot of whirlwinds in which we get caught up in the corporate world. It's totally understandable. But I think these are to be the two big focus areas, two C's, culture and competency. They are exciting, but they are also excruciating. So it's about how you balance both the things. That's what I would like to share with the HR community.